this onshoring movement is going to trigger a huge amount of approvals for mines, for oil drilling, energy projects in the US, in Australia, and in these friendly countries, and whether there's an investment opportunity there.
Well, it's a great question, Nick, because at kind of the first approximation, you would say yes. I mean, if we're going to limit the group of players to friendly countries, and if we're going to replace supply coming from Russia or China or other countries, as the case may be, we're going to have to open up new facilities ourselves. And so that means new factories, new investment, but new mines, et cetera, and new energy sources. Having said that, that vector, and it's a powerful one and a logical one, runs head on into the climate alarmists and the Green New Deal, which I call the Green New Scam. So should the U.S. expand production of oil and natural gas? Absolutely. Absolutely. We have a lot of unused capacity and a lot of reserves. And I'm not saying deal Saudi Arabia out of the equation, but if you're going to replace Russian natural gas, you better get the fracking industry in the United States geared up. And I'm not sure quite what the status is in Australia, but build more liquid natural gas vessels, build more liquid natural gas terminal facilities, which basically are big freezers, so you can keep it in a liquid form. So that's just all common sense, and the capital is available to do that. But then the greenies come along and say, well, no, we've got to go to alternatives. We've got to go to renewables, wind turbines, solar modules. We can't have oil and natural gas. And so at a time when you would think the solution would, build the Keystone Pipeline, get the oil from Alberta and Canada to the U.S. hub. I think it's in Kansas or Nebraska, one of the central states, so it can be distributed around the United States. I say, no, we got to shut the Keystone Pipeline. The interesting thing about it, and it just shows how ideology triumphs over common sense for a lot of these people, the oil is still coming from Alberta to the United States. It's coming by rail, which is about the dirtiest way you could move it. Whereas that one of the benefits of pipelines is that it's, you build them, but once you build them, it's very, very clean. They don't emit energy in the course of transporting the oil and natural gas. By the way, guess who owns the railroad, the Burlington Northern Railroad? Warren Buffett. So he knew what he was doing about, I guess, 12, 15 years ago when he bought the Burlington Northern Railroad, because they're moving on his, a train of tanker cars, oil tanker. It's a pipeline on wheels. I mean, it looks like a pipeline with, couplings, and they just move it down the tracks. But why not build a pipeline? Well, that's too logical for the climate alarmists. I might even be on their side a little if there was any science behind it, but there isn't. If you the United Nations comes out with these 700-page, international climate change convention. Forget the exact acronym reports. They update them every 5 years. I actually get them. They're great doorstops, but I do read them. I can't say I've read them cover to cover. I've read a lot of them because I do research in the area. And what you find is that, page upon page of hysteria, end of the world, et cetera. And then somewhere around page 600 in a footnote, 9.5 says, by the way, we're not really sure of any of this. And, it may not play out as we project, et cetera. So they cover themselves. But the truth is, objective scientists using better methods will tell you that there's something going on. It deserves study, but it's not existential. It's nowhere near an imminent crisis. We're not really sure. Is there a little more CO2 in the atmosphere? Yes. Is it all man-made? No. Is it the leading cause of global warming? Well, first of all, is the world really warming? It's pretty cold spring where I am. But you go worldwide, the global warming, it might have been a mild global warming trend that ended in the late 1990s, but that seems to have reversed. I've spoken to experts, and including some in Australia. They said, Jim, you have to understand the people doing this whole rig, they put the thermometers in parking lots, where the asphalt bakes it to like 190 degrees Fahrenheit. And I've actually taken the time to study how climatological models are built. Now, I know a lot about complexity theory and model building, but I hadn't built a climate model. So I said, well, I'll learn about that. And I did. I don't want to kind of go on and belabor it, but when you understand how the climate models are built, and when you understand complexity theory, rule number one is minuscule changes in initial conditions can produce exponential differences in outcomes because of recursive functions. And you say, oh, so at 10 miles in the atmosphere, a 1 mile thick pancake layer of 1 square mile in Africa, something happens, but you purport to tell me what that does to ice in Antarctica. It's if you understand the computational complexity and how complexity theory works and all the things that are very, very hard to define, on a good day, and doing this properly, if you could, which you cannot, exceeds the computational capacity of the world. It does. There aren't enough computers in the whole world to run this math, if you could even construct it. So what do they do instead? Well, they make assumptions. Okay, well, I can make assumptions too. The point is, it's all ideological. It's all driven by assumptions. The assumptions are far-fetched. The most telling, the most critical thing I can say about climate models, and this has been demonstrated, they can't even backtest correctly. In other words, they can't even predict what already happened, let alone, so that's a pretty good reason to suspect they can't predict what's going to happen next. So it's not that the field isn't real science. It is. It's not that it doesn't deserve study. It does. I'd be all for spending research dollars on it. But I think you just have to start with a lot of humility, get the politics out of it. Good luck with that. But that's the kind of ideological smokescreen that's standing in the way of what you suggested, which is, well, couldn't Australia and Canada and the US and the UK and Western Europe and South Korea and a few other friendly countries build robust global supply chains, including those that met all the energy requirements? And the answer is, it's possible, but I'm a little skeptical that it will happen.